Players oftentimes get serious hits from fans, like Philippe Coutinho, who recorded one of the most expensive transfers in football history to Barcelona in 2018. But it didn't take much time for the former Liverpool midfielder to be labeled as lazy, out of form, and a big disappointment. Things went downhill from there for the Brazilian, as no European club seemed to want him. Not even Aston Villa, who loaned the 31-year-old to play in Qatar for Al Dunhill SC. However, there are ways athletes can shield themselves from these harsh insults and criticisms. Let's find out how. Things don't always go south for athletes after harsh criticism. As a matter of fact, some footballers who were labeled flops eventually became world-class players. Look at De Bruyne, for example. It's now hard to believe that once upon a time, top clubs didn't want this guy. While at Chelsea, his coach, Jose Mourinho, was never convinced by his talents and openly questioned his commitment in training. As a result of this, De Bruyne got minimum playtime and was sent out on a loan to German club SV Werder Bremen.
If I'm not making it, what is it worth? Because if I'm not making it to football, I lost everything. And luckily for me, that determination of saying like, I'm going to be in the first team in this year, in these 2 months, changed my whole career for the good.
It is true that in the press, yes, said Kevin De Bruyne on Mourinho's criticism of him, that I wasn't doing what was needed in training. It was easy to say that because there was no one to check it. The training sessions were closed to the public. The Belgian left Chelsea in 2014 to move to Wolfsburg, but didn't let his coach's opinion of him weigh him down. And in 2015, he moved to Manchester City and today is regarded as the best midfielder of his generation, at 32 years old and one of the greatest footballers of all time. A study published in the Sport Journal found that distractions and criticisms can drain mental energy and decrease performance of athletes. It can lead to conflicts and destructive mental health. It doesn't matter if it's Michael Phelps or Iron Mike, negative criticism will affect an athlete's game. That is, if they don't deal with it the way they should. Negative evaluation has in several other studies been linked to increased stress and cortisol levels, but athletes are still able to navigate criticism successfully. Now the question is, how do they do it? Number 1, focusing on the game. This is a common strategy that athletes have used to navigate negative criticism. By directing their attention towards their performance, training regime, and personal growth within the sport, athletes maintain a sense of control and build confidence. This approach allows them to prioritize aspects of their game and life that they can influence, such as skill development, tactical strategies, and mental preparation. Here is one practical example. Despite all the adoring fans, Michael Jordan still had a lot of critics. And it wasn't just when he got famous. He had to deal with negative criticism from day one. But Jordan's response to his critics was simple. He never argued with them or dismissed them or tried to defend himself. Instead, he kept quiet and listened. Jordan always saw negative criticism as a challenge. It didn't matter what the critics were saying about his game, Jordan would answer them by working harder to improve any area of his game that was criticized. He would take any suggested weakness in his game and work them into strengths, and in the process, he would prove the critics wrong. When Michael Jordan first came into the league, his critics said he was just a slasher and a dunker who could not shoot from the outside. Michael took that criticism and focused his efforts on improving his shot. He shot and just kept on shooting. He worked on it so much that his shot became just another one of his characteristic qualities, and it made him even more dangerous on the court. But his critics then started picking on his defense. Jordan did have some trouble adjusting to the NBA style of defense. The criticism against him was that he was not a very strong straight-up defender, and that he also took too many chances on defense trying to get steals. But in the 1987-88 season, Jordan's efforts on defense paid off. He led the league in steals and also led the Bulls in blocked shots. His defense was so dominating that he won the Defensive Player of the Year award along with the season MVP. Number 2, limit exposure. You don't have to deal with negative comments if there are no negative comments to begin with. The rise of social media has created a new level of accessibility and interactivity between athletes and sports fans. While this has provided opportunities for athletes to connect with their supporters, it also has exposed them to a great deal of criticism and negativity. The ease with which social media users can post negative comments, often anonymously, has led to a culture of online harassment that can be especially harmful for athletes. Critics can also target athletes' families and friends, making the experience even more challenging for the athlete. Naomi Osaka, for instance, was in the headlines after withdrawing from the French Open in 2021, following a fine she received for not participating in a press conference due to her mental health. A study later found the 24-year-old Osaka was the most abused tennis player on Twitter in 2021. receiving over 31 mentions that had negative sentiments. Later in the Australian Open, Naomi Osaka, a four-time Grand Slam champion, was knocked out of the Australian Open in the third round, losing in 3 sets to Amanda Anisimova.
Well, you've stated you don't especially like the press conference format. Yet that seems to be obviously the most widely used means of communicating to the media and through the media to the public.
That's interesting. I would say the occasion, like when to do the press conference, is what I feel is the most difficult.
She said after the loss, quote, "The first thing that I'll probably do when I look at my phone is delete Instagram and Twitter, and then I probably won't re-download it for a couple of weeks." And so athletes can take proactive steps to minimize exposure to negative comments and protect their mental well-being. One approach is to curate their online presence by carefully selecting which platforms they engage with and moderating comments on their social media accounts. Limiting exposure to negativity can help athletes maintain a healthy mindset and focus on their performance without getting distracted by external criticism. Staying off social media can also help athletes avoid the detrimental effects of comparison and enable them to maintain focus on their own game. Social media platforms often present an idealized version of reality, leading athletes to compare themselves unfavorably to their peers. Seeing highlights of other athletes' successes or glamorous aspects of their lives can evoke feelings of inadequacy or pressure to measure up, which can be detrimental to an athlete's self-esteem and confidence. By staying off social media, athletes can mitigate the temptation to engage in unhealthy comparisons and instead focus on their own journey and progression in the sport. Number 3, therapy. Not everyone knows this, but a lot of sports athletes work with therapists, especially to help them deal mentally with negative criticism. So it's really nothing to be ashamed about. Like Spanish football Ferran Torres, who after moving to Barcelona was called a flop following his lackluster performances against. And that's how the negative everything started going bad for Ferran Torres. The Catalan daily newspaper wrote that Ferran Torres was blocked, self-conscious, and had nothing going well for him. It was said he lacked confidence and made mistakes that didn't line up with someone of his quality. Quote, "I found myself in a bottomless pit and I could not see the way out," said Ferran. "It had never happened to me before. That was the moment I decided to work with a psychologist. I lost my confidence, everything was affecting me. Seeing a psychologist will become increasingly normalized in football. There are weeks when I don't go and others when I go 3 times. Staff at the club were also supporting Torres and hoped that he would get out of his slump soon." And things did get better as Ferran was able to get better and redeem himself in the 2023-2024 football season. So therapy does prove to be a valuable resource for athletes dealing with negative comments and the emotional toll that comes with it. By engaging in therapy, athletes have the opportunity to explore and process their reactions to criticism in a safe and supportive environment. Therapists can help athletes identify and challenge negative thought patterns, allowing them to develop healthier coping mechanisms and a more resilient mindset through techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT and mindfulness-based approaches. Moreover, therapy provides athletes with a confidential space to address any underlying issues that may be contributing to their vulnerability to criticism. Therapists can help athletes explore past experiences, traumas, or insecurities that may be influencing their reactions to negative comments. By gaining insight into these underlying factors, athletes can work towards healing and self-empowerment, enabling them to navigate criticism more successfully. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you want to be seeing more content like this. See you next time.